describe the agency in one word, what would it be?
Great.
Consistency, cooperation, continuity,
Stewardship.
Visionaries.
I think it's important to tell the story of where we came from. I guess it's 30, 40 years ago, the water quality was really, really poor. There was no attention being given to what was put into the bay, and really focusing on that as a community and really getting everybody on the same page and working towards a more healthy bay was a goal.
You know, these were the days when we still had widespread dredging and filling of wetlands in the bay. We had secondarily treated wastewater flowing into the bay. So a lot of those big nutrient issues were kind of coming to the forefront.
Every year we had the blue-green bloom, and especially in Hillsborough Bay, but also in Old Tampa Bay. It usually started in June, July, and lasted through the summer. And the bay was absolutely green. I mean, it looked like a lawn almost.
We were not managing our resources on a local level or a national level appropriately. Hillsborough Bay was so polluted that no one wanted to walk on Bayshore, which really is a beautiful walk now, and it's hard for us to recognize how bad things were.
Tampa Bay was a not nice place. The water was filthy, things were dying, it was stinky. It really needed that kind of community uprising for people to come in and say, this needs to change.
So we started meeting at the Regional Planning Council, and Mary Figg was then a state representative, and she was able to get legislation passed, which started the Tampa Bay Study Commission. And we spent a year or two, I believe, doing a study of Tampa Bay and what the needs were, the problems, and how to evaluate solutions. After we finished our report, we had 3 recommendations. The first one was to form an authority, which probably wasn't going to be looked at very well by local government, or people don't want another level of government. The second thing was an agency, which was sort of like the area agency on aging, which you already had here. And the third thing was to do nothing. Well, obviously 1 and 3 didn't work, so that's when the Agency on Bay Management was formed.
The work that the agency has done has been a cornerstone for the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. Back in 1985, when the Agency on Bay and Coastal Management was first formed, regionalism was not well received for many, many decades. And when it came to Tampa Bay waters, it was easy to explain to folks that we all have a stake in that beautiful water. I think that's one of the most important things, is that we work together. And when the Agency on Bay and Coastal Management meets, they meet with one purpose, and that is to be stewards of the bay, and now stewards of the coastline and all of our watersheds in our beautiful 6-county region.
One of the most significant things that the agency has done is they have constructed a base which is very representative of a broad group of individuals. We have with us scientists, environmentalists, representatives from the coastal community, both personal and primarily designees from the Regional Planning Council. It was extremely important that we had this model, and it's not just a model, it's being implemented to make a positive difference for the animals that are precious to us, to the people who live here.
The value of the agency was having those disparate parties in the room. You know, the development community, local government, regulatory agencies, the nature organizations, the conservation organizations that had little voice outside of, trying to get agencies to do the right thing, trying to get local governments to do the right thing. But all those people had an equal seat at the table. The representatives of the local governments that sat on the council, like Jan Platt and Barbara Sheen Todd, and some of the county representatives in big cities that had a bigger stake, were very much part of the success of the agency.
The Agency on Bay and Coastal Management was the first group to say, we have a house, we have a name, we have an organization rather than people meeting in somebody's living room, which was important at the time. I'm definitely Betty Castor and Ernie Estevez and Robin Lewis and all of those people made such an enormous difference. But the fact that it was part of the Regional Planning Council, part of a more formal organization, made a giant difference going forward.
I think one of the things we're able to do is we're able to get a lot of different kind of interests together to talk and communicate with each other when they might not otherwise. I have my interests, they have their interests, and we need to pull our interests together to complement each other. And that can be business, that can be dealing with the phosphate industry, that can be dealing with the Chamber of Commerce, that can be dealing with local governments that may not necessarily communicate with each other, or they're competing with each other. We may have to agree to disagree, but we need to be working together.
Well, I think it's a forum for people to get their views through, or if there are concerns, they can bring those up. So it's always been like that. I think that there's a place you can be heard, and people listen to you, and if the folks agree, then some action happens. Everybody says that we taking care of all the low-hanging fruit in the bay in terms of nutrient loading, but there still are some low-hanging fruit out there. I think that would be worthwhile to look at. One is the variance that some cities and communities have about discharging wastewater without advanced wastewater treatment, and they use that water for irrigation on lawns in parks and neighborhoods. A lot of that water is not used by the vegetation that it was originally thought, just flows directly into the bay, and it has a very high level of nitrogen in it. So that is something that I think could be looked at to try to reduce that influence.
So back in the mid-1980s, the Agency on Bay Management was really kind of the only group that was comprehensively trying to address the problems in Tampa Bay. But as the agency matured, we also started to create these other organizations that had different funding sources, different regulations that could help ultimately provide the framework for the restoration of the Tampa Bay estuary. So where we started with, an organization that didn't have jurisdictional responsibilities, that ultimately grew into organizations like the Surface Water Improvement Management Program, the National Estuary Program, different entities that could take on a variety of different responsibilities so that we really could kind of all work together in different areas, but to advance the ultimate restoration goals that we had established for Tampa Bay.
In the early 80s, that's like when water quality in this area was at its historic low point for most of these places. And so as a child, I watched water clarity improve over time, and what a privilege it was to be able to grow up and see that we could make a difference. And a lot of that was due to the work of Jan Platt, who is somebody who is really formative in the agency's history. And all of her activism before she was a county commissioner, as she was working to help improve water quality in that area, I benefited directly from it. It helped show me that water quality can improve. We can fix environmental problems if we have the right science, we have the political will to invest in these things. I watched it happen, and to be able to then come into, a place in my professional career where I was rubbing elbows with Jan Platt and getting to honor her service and name her as a champion of the Bay, to be able to, those people that you that were like icons in your childhood, and then you get to be there and do things with them and realize the baton has been passed. It's been really, that's really gratifying. And again, that kind of continuity that the agency provides, just cool that we have that.
Congratulations to the Agency of Bay and Coastal Management for 40 years of collaborative working to make the community that we live in, our larger Tampa Bay region, better for us humans, but also the wildlife that lives here with us.
It's exciting that an organization has lasted that long. If you last 40 years, it means you're doing something right. You're valuable in terms of what you offer the community and the environment. My advice is just carry on. When I started, I was a young planner, and there were many senior people in the room. Many of those have retired, are no longer with us, and I did my best over the last 3 decades almost, trying to continue this regional collaborative organization. There are young people in the room right now, and they're going to be the next leaders carrying on addressing these issues. Use this organization. It's very valuable. It can help educate, inform, it can be a sounding board for projects. So I would urge the young planners, the young scientists, use this organization in the future.
The next generation, stay alert and notice changes. And if they're not good changes, be sure to bring them up and learn about the Bay and get educated. So you can see those changes. And I think that's really important, that there's a community that actually are informed of the conditions in the Bay.
It thrills me to see the legacy that the Agency on Bay and Coastal Management has created, not only with the efforts and the programs in tandem with the council, but just the people. 20 years on a committee, a volunteer committee, 30 years, 40 years on a volunteer committee. And we're not talking 1 or 2 people. We're talking about folks who have had a commitment. And I think that speaks to the value of the Agency on Bay and Coastal Management itself and the Regional Planning Council for making sure that we stay focused. And I think that as we enter this new time, our 41st year, the mission's going to be the same regardless. We're going to keep plugging along, and we're going to make sure that our area stays beautiful and our waters are gorgeous.
The mission's not over. We probably have 40 more years of work to do. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, the population continues to grow. So those impacts on Tampa Bay continue to change and intensify in some cases. So making sure that happens with an eye on Tampa Bay is important.